All right. Thank you so much for joining us, Chris. Today, the vignette for Chris's story is that he's been married for 5 years. 3 months ago, Chris began to feel like his wife was being distant. And while she was being distant, he believes that she started cheating on him with someone potentially at her work. Um, After that, he was concerned for her and began to reach out to her. During that time, she began to shove and slap him. She also began to sleep away from the home. This is the vignette for Chris and partner violence for Clay Smith. All right. Chris, before we get started, I want to cover a couple of things, confidentiality specifically, so that you know what you can and can't say and what I will or won't reveal to others, just so that you feel comfortable. So, under confidentiality, there is no way that I would share any of your information with anyone, save for three reasons. And so, I'm going to reveal those reasons to you so that you are aware of them and feel comfortable with it. Okay?
Okay.
All right, great. So first of all, under that, it would be a subpoena. If I'm subpoenaed by the court and I'm then asked to come in and talk about things for a case, then I might have to reveal information. After that, it would be abuse of a child or an elderly person. If you reveal any abuse or for a child or an elderly person, I would have to reveal that as well. And then lastly, harm. If you plan to do harm to yourself or others, I might have to report that or break confidentiality as well. Does all of that make sense?
Sure. Yeah. And
Excellent. Thank you so much, Chris, for joining us today at the clinic. Why don't you tell me a little bit about what brought you in?
Been married to my wife for 5 years. We do not work in the same field, so we're away from me. But she does have a career, so we don't spend a lot of time together at home. It's the typical 8 to 5, 9 to 5. Money is still kind of tight, so I'm about to take a new job that causes me to travel a lot, and I don't know if that's caused the root of the issue, but I'm about to be away from home a lot more, and so she's grown distant. I would say a year, but seriously distant the past probably 4 or 5 months.
Now, Chris, if you don't mind, I'm going to cut you off just so I can better understand what you're talking about. When you say distant, what do you mean?
Um, Emotional distance. We're both very sincere people. I think that's why we got married at such a young age. You connect with somebody and it's rare that you do that, be able to just be yourself around them. So um, she is not sharing what I would say sharing life with me the way that we normally do, whether it be eating dinner together. That's another thing. We're getting so busy and so tired with each other that we're barely cooking dinner. So either she's grabbing dinner at work and staying late, or I'm grabbing dinner on the way home and we eat it and watching TV, not sitting at the table, talking, or even in bed, like just not emotionally caring.
So what I'm hearing from you is that there's a breakdown of communication and that you're having a difficult time being able to connect. Is that right?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Emotionally not connecting at all. I think that's where it starts. And I'm not one to ask for help, but
Mm.
3 or 4 months down the road, that's where it started. Now it's more like it's almost disgusting to look at me. So that's kind of.
Now, did she say that it was disgusting to look at you, or is that something that you're feeling?
That's an observation that I make. Lack of eye contact is not something we've ever struggled with. So
Right. So what you're saying now is in this, as she's beginning to be distant, that you feel like she doesn't even want to look at you.
yeah, that's kind of where we are. And at first, it really was. It was definitely like not making eye contact, emotional distancing, like just kind of she would go to bed before I got there, or vice versa. Um, One time I was trying to approach her in a very soft way. It's probably the first time this happened. Just kind of like console her and hug her, like put my hands on her in that way. And she
Right.
definitely pushed me off.
Yeah.
She's never been a violent person at all. Not that I know of anyway.
So now when you say she pushed you off, were y'all laying down when this happened and she shoved you away, or was
She,
it more delicate than that?
um, I had kind of throughout the process of the argument kind of made my way to her. We're standing in the kitchen and she's about to
Okay.
sit. And I really just wanted to hug my wife and tell her that, you know, I care. Um, and she pushed me away. And that was not very violent physically, like I didn't feel threatened, but her
Right.
physically willing to push me off of her was more disturbing than me getting pushed, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And I apologize. I missed this. How long ago did you say it was when that happened?
That first argument was probably right at 3 months ago. But I mean, we
Okay.
had been kind of, distancing before that, but that was really the first time she had physically put her hands on me.
Yeah. So now let me ask you this before we dig too deep in it. Has there been other physical touches that were aggressive since then?
Yeah, it took a while for them to get more aggressive, but yeah,
So this was a slow process. I apologize. I didn't mean to cut
no,
you off,
no,
but
no, no.
this has been a slow process of her kind of developing aggression towards you. Is that a word that you would use? Aggression?
Yeah, I hate that word because I love my wife,
Hmm.
but
Yeah.
but yeah, I would say when it goes from like a soft push, like she won't let me hug her, to slapping me when I asked her a
Oh
question.
wow.
That's a
Wow.
that
Yeah.
didn't it didn't go from there to there. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
It wasn't
Yeah.
0 to 100. It was you know constant pushing me off of her, whether it be like us getting ready for work or getting ready for bed, and like she would not want constantly pushing me off of her. Not that I would physically put myself on her in a very dominating way, but just like a "will you just hug me"
Yeah.
kind of way. To when I began to ask her where she would be at times, getting slapped was never. I never saw that coming. You know,
Yeah. Okay. So when you questioned where she was, that's when you got slapped?
that was yeah.
That
It's
was one
been
of the first times, or?
yeah. It's just been I don't know 2 or 3 times, and at that point, I mean now I'm staying in a hotel room because I
Yeah.
wanted to give her the space at home. I don't want to taint the picture of my wife in my brain either, so I'm not.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want that to happen again if I can avoid it. So
So what you did was you took a healthy step for you and just left that situation.
yeah, I think I should have the first time, but 2 or 3 times later, I don't know. I don't like to keep score when it comes to that, but
Well,
yeah,
now I understand that, but it's a little bit different keeping score and protecting yourself. So just being honest there.
sure,
Keeping score is you took the remote.
sure,
Protecting yourself is I don't want to be hit anymore.
yeah,
And you shouldn't feel bad about that.
yeah.
Like just being aware of what took place. So let me ask you this: the first 4 years into the marriage, was there any sign of aggression or anything like that, or has it just purely been within the past 3 months?
I think it's like I said earlier, maybe 4 or 5 months would be the earliest I give that. Like
Hmm.
first 2 or 3 years were great, typical like can't keep our hands off of each other,
Right.
very much in love. Um, as you get older, things get more intense. Like your student loans come,
Yeah.
health insurance comes, all the things that don't, get told to you when you're a kid. So I don't know if this started with the idea of me getting a better job or what. I'm not sure.
Yeah, because you mentioned that you were getting a new job, and that was putting new stress on the relationship as well, and that you both work, and just reality was kind of setting in. And did you feel like as reality was setting in that this might have been something that caused her to act differently?
Maybe, but I mean, we had talked about it a bunch. Like, alternatively, I could stay where I was. It
Hmm.
was fine, but we would continue to struggle. And from my childhood growing up, financial struggle is unfortunately, marriage struggles. And I never wanted my wife, which we don't have kids. I don't think I brought that up earlier.
Hmm.
I think we both wanted them one day.
Yeah.
But I knew that that was a struggle that I never wanted my family or my marriage to experience. And so it's the career move, the job move for me was not I want to better myself. It was really like, we if
I want to provide.
yeah,
Is
if
that
I'm gonna
the
do
best
better,
way to say it?
yeah.
Yeah. And
So,
so now you said that you think you both wanted kids. Um, so are speaking in past tense like that, is there some part of you that's saying that you feel like this is too far gone?
um, I would hope not, because if it was, I wouldn't be asking for help.
Right.
Um,
Excellent. Yeah.
I don't think the person that my wife has been the past 4 or 5 months is the person my wife has been for the past 4 or 5 years. And
Okay.
so when I say wanted, I guess I don't know what she wants now. I don't know if
Right.
this is the new her. I don't
And
know.
so you're saying you still do want them.
Oh
That's
yeah,
something that's still.
I
And
love my wife.
yeah, I was about to say, I would really like to establish that that's something that you're firm on. You still want to be with her.
Hmm.
If there's a possible way forward that's healthy like
Absolutely. We don't know each other personally, but if you did know me, I don't ask for help. I don't
that.
talk to anybody about anything. I'm the helper, and so the fact that I'm asking for counseling is a pretty big deal because I
Yeah.
don't know what she's at or what she's doing. So I definitely want to try to make it work. But
And I think that that should be recognized as well. Like in some sense that you should be proud of yourself because there are a lot of men who, when violence is happens against them from their spouse, they just assume that it's normal or they should stay quiet about it. And on a very personal level, I'd like to share with you that I have a brother of mine who has suffered in this way. That his wife became violent towards him, and in that violence, it became very difficult for he and his wife and for their kids. It was a very difficult situation, and they eventually separated. And I don't want that for you and your
mhm,
wife. But I think that being aware of the consequences and kind of what's going on is important. And so, do you feel like there's anything else that could be leading her to feel like there's distance between the two of you? Because you've mentioned now that she got distant because of job and she got distant because of just kind of she wouldn't even look you in the eye anymore. And so, is there anything else that you feel like maybe contributing to her not wanting to be close to you?
um, probably the fear of change. And again, I'm going to continue to blame it on myself because I'm that kind of person. But
Hmm.
um,
And I want to say something before you finish that thought as you kind of work it out in your head. Don't think of this as blame. I'm being sincere. Don't think of this as blame. This is just simply understanding. And so understanding what's going on is so important. And if we begin to blame people, then we take on too much pressure on ourselves, or we allow important responsibilities that should be laid on us go elsewhere. And so don't think of it as blame. Think of it as just kind of coming to a place of understanding. Okay.
okay. Um, the conversation about my job move happened about 3 or 4 years ago. I mean, or 3 or 4 years in our marriage. So about a year ago, we were considering it. I had gotten a phone call from the company I wanted to interview with, and just to give you a little bit about the nature of the job, throughout the year I would be gone about 6 months out of the year,
Oh,
maybe
wow.
6 weeks here. Then I'm back home working from my home office or whatever, and then back. I wouldn't have to move cities. I would get to stay at home when I wasn't working, but um, there's a good half of the year that I'm going to be, gone on the road. And so that was a bit of a concern, but the financial turnaround it would almost increase my salary 60 or 70%. And so it was really what we needed to be able to move into a bigger house. We're talking about having kids. And so like, you can't raise kids in a 2-bedroom apartment. At least
Right.
you can, but I don't want my kids to have to experience that.
So your drive up to this point, what we're talking about right now, is financial security and safety.
Mhm.
And can I ask you, are in your mind, are you doing this for her?
I've asked myself the same question. You know, I think when I first started, yes.
Hmm.
Um, and I like it. I like the development, the career development, but
Right.
you're constantly battling. Am I doing this for myself, or am I doing this for my marriage? Because too much individuality in a marriage not healthy either.
Right.
And so, I don't know. I guess I don't know the answer to that question.
So let me ask you this: do you enjoy your job?
Absolutely. I don't
Okay.
hate
So
the
you
job that I have now, and I don't
okay.
hate this new opportunity that's about to begin. So,
Okay. So there is joy in your job,
yeah.
and your current. Well, let's move back to something else just briefly. Your current thing is, are you wanting to reconcile with your wife? Is that where you are currently, or are you wanting to understand how you feel about it, or where are you at?
I want to find the root of the problem,
Mm-hmm.
and if it is me, I need to know that. If it's just an occurrence, I need to know that. But I don't know why my wife would ever be violent. That's really the root of like, have I caused this? Is there action that I have not seen? Is there mental illness that has not been, shared with me on her hat? But because we've been married 5 years, this has never come up.
Yeah.
And so to not get away from the root of the problem, right around the time that my career move was about to happen, my job move, she began to hang out with some people from church in a small group.
Mm-hmm.
She needed some new friends. She's not from the area that we live in now.
Okay.
So, and I have friends, not many. I have 2 or 3 really close, solid friends, but it's not like I'm hanging out with them every weekend. They have wives and children as well.
Right.
But I knew them before I knew her. So it's not that she can't be friends with them, but she feels a little, like she's
Like there's
behind
some
the game.
distance there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't like to encourage that, her feeling distance within my friendships. And so I've been trying to, make the same friends that she has. And,
Mm-hmm. And now these would be the same friends that she's in the small group at church with.
yes,
Okay.
at least I don't go to that small group.
Right.
She says it's a lady small group. So I don't know if that's where this all started, but the first few nights that we argued and she had pushed herself off of me,
Yeah.
she didn't stay in the home. She
Okay.
said,
So she left.
yeah, she, it wasn't like every night for 2 or 3 weeks straight or anything like that. But every time that we had an argument and she felt like she needed to push me off, or she didn't stay at home.
Now let me ask you this: when she left, did you ever feel unsafe for your person? I could see you. You look like you could handle yourself. So did you ever feel unsafe?
Mm, no, physically I would, obviously I could defend myself with my wife, but emotionally, like, I'm an emotional person. So like, it's a lot for me to even sit here and talk about. She,
Now hold on. Take your time. I can see that this is becoming difficult for you. So take your time. Don't try to share too much. And I want you to just relax for a moment. Okay. You're leaned in. You're very engaged. So maybe lean back just for a second. Just take a moment. Um, because I know that talking about stuff like this is very difficult for a lot of people, and it takes a lot out of you, especially if this is not something that you're accustomed to doing. So just take a minute.
yeah, you're the first person that knows about this.
Now, is there any specific reason as to why you haven't been talking about it, or is that just your style, or
A little bit of both, but I don't want to taint any kind of image of my wife. I still love her, so
yeah?
I don't want. So this is what makes me like hard to speak about. When we first started arguing, it was, I'm going to stay with a friend, or I'm going to stay with Catherine from church, or blah blah blah.
Mm-hmm.
Perfectly fine. I want her to feel safe if she doesn't feel safe at home or whatever. Which I'm not the one being violent, but
Right.
if she feels like she needs to get out of the house, then that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
But about 3 months ago, that's 2.5, 3 months ago, that's when it began to be like, okay, she's gone.
Yeah.
So I just, in this new job that I had just started, was about 6 months ago. I'd kind of introed with the company. I'm still staying at home. Um, and then all of this is happening on my first trip out with the company. And so I just come back from my first 2 months off. I say off, out of town.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's when the arguments really picked up. That's when the pushing and shoving. So that was 3 months ago, and I'm about to go on my next trip with the company.
Okay.
Um,
So just for me to clarify and make sure I know where we're at. So you left, and then when you came back, that's when you felt like the pushing and shoving started, and now you're leaving again. And when you were back, that's when she would leave and go stay with someone else. Now, did she has she told you who she was staying with?
she names Catherine often.
Mm-hmm.
Girls from
Now,
the small group.
is that someone from the small group?
Yes.
Okay.
I have met her before. I know Catherine is an actual person,
Okay.
but it's when she says Catherine and the girls from church or the girls from the group or whatever were hanging out. That's when it's like, are you really hanging out with Catherine and the girls?
Yeah. Now, and you also mentioned this a minute ago, and I didn't say anything at the time, but it seems suggestive. You made the statement that she's going to a small group, and she says that it's only for women. Why do you say that? That seems to be like you're suggesting that it might be more than that, or it might be something different. Do you feel that way?
Maybe. I don't want to feel that way,
Okay.
but trying to put two and two together, there's no way, she's getting violent with me. That's
Mm-hmm.
that's the root of the problem. So I'm a root cause analysis person. Why? Why would she be that way?
Yeah.
Am I distant? Have I distanced myself? Is this job scaring her? Well, we had this conversation for 6 months throughout the interview process, like that we were doing this so that we could progress, like move to the next stage, possibly have kids, possibly have a better home, and she wouldn't have to change her job because she enjoys her job. And so I don't think that she would be mad at me for doing that. She could be.
Mm-hmm.
The only other thing that could possibly, there could be mental illness there. I just don't think there is. And then the third, the only other option is that she's met somebody else, or there's been some kind of affair, or some kind
Okay.
of, whether it be emotional or physical.
Now, is that just your mind jumping to that conclusion, or do you feel like you've seen some evidence of that?
I feel like the room's kind of spinning right now. Hold on.
All right, take a moment and just breathe in. Just breathe in real deep and release that. Okay, I want you to do something for me. I know that this can be a little strange, but it helps a lot of people. So what I want you to do is put your feet flat on the ground, put your hands flat on the surface that's in front of you, and then I want you to just look around the room. Okay, I want you to find 5 things in the room, and then in your head, just name them. You don't have to say them out loud. Just name these 5 things. While you're doing that, I want to tell you that this is a grounding exercise to bring you back to where you are. Cheating, or the potential idea that someone is cheating, is very difficult, and it can cause us to kind of lose our place. I'd also like for you to think of 4 things that you're touching. So again, the 5 things in the room, and then think of the 4 things that you're touching. Just list them in your mind. You don't have to say them out loud. So the chair you're sitting on, the table your hands are on, just think of 4 things. All right? And I want you to close your eyes, and I want you to hear 3 things. One of those 3 things could be silence. One of them could be my voice, the computer in front of you. Just hear 3 things. Okay. You good? You back
Yeah.
here with us now? You okay? Okay, good, good. Thank you. Um, so we moved into the subject of her potentially seeing someone else. That's been a fear of yours. Are you comfortable continuing to talk about that?
Yes and no. We need to.
Right.
It's really the root of why I've even wanted to have this session. So yeah.
Yeah. I think that's super honest of you, and so I appreciate that because honestly, sometimes people they bump up against what they're really feeling, and then when they bump up against that, they want to back away. So you're saying you want to walk forward.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me know if it becomes difficult. I can see that you're with me, but I can see that you're also barely with me.
Yeah.
You're on the verge of saying I don't want to do this anymore. So if it gets to that point, say, hey, I don't want to talk about this. Okay.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Thank you.
I think psychologically it doesn't bother me. It's just emotionally it's a lot, and I'm not going to cry in front of my counselor. So
Well, it's okay to cry here. That's okay. And if it makes you feel any better, you would be crying in front of your computer. Your counselor would just see it.
sure.
So
Um, so I guess to pick up the narrative, the shoving and pushing arguments, the staying at Catherine's or staying with the girls or spending the weekend at some retreat,
mhm.
you begin to lose count. And we've never, ever, ever questioned one another's trust.
Yeah.
She said it, I took it as fact. If I said it, she took it as fact. One of the things that we talked about while we were dating was just being 100% sincere. Not that you wouldn't tell a white lie like I'll be home in 15 minutes and really you show up 45 minutes because you were having an extra drink with your buddy or whatever. Like
Right.
not that stuff, but like really talking about life, really talking about what we were feeling and thinking. Never have we ever questioned one another's trust. And
Yeah.
I had never had to do that, and I did. And that was the first time that she slapped me. She had come
Mm.
home late one night. It's probably 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning. And I can't sleep. So I'm drinking bourbon, trying to go to sleep.
Right.
Not being a drunk, talking 2 glasses, but
Mm-hmm.
she walks in. I'm sitting in the living room. We make eye contact, and she just didn't even say a word. She goes straight to the kitchen because she's, I guess, thirsty. So she's getting a glass of water out of the refrigerator. I'll walk into the kitchen around the corner, and I just asked her, would you be honest with me and tell me where you've been?
Mm.
And she just slapped me. No words, no, just slapped me. And then we just kind of made eye contact. And she said, I can't believe that you don't trust me.
Okay. And then what happened after this? Where did she go? What did she do?
She went straight to the bedroom.
Okay. And what did you do?
Well, I did not feel invited to go to the bedroom.
Right.
So,
Good hard pop is not normally an invitation.
yeah, my heart is like, I can feel my heart like beating in my face. I'm like, she didn't just like slap me, she slapped me. And she's
Yeah.
never been violent with me before. And
Now, let me ask you this, Chris. Where was that in inside the 3 months? Was that closer towards the end of the 3 months, or was that earlier on?
about halfway through, we're like 2 month mark.
Okay.
Again, I don't like to keep up with how many times that it's happened. I don't want to keep a tally, but as you have informed me, it is not
Yeah.
keeping tally or keeping score. But my
Did
date
it,
told me. But
did it happen more after that? Did the physical contact kind of become more progressive after that moment?
yeah, anytime anything was aggressive, it had gotten to the point where we weren't even friends living in the same house. We were just two roommates,
Mm-hmm.
So whether it be me sleeping on the couch or her sleeping away and showing up late, sleeping on the couch and then being gone before work or whatever. There would be physical, some kind of physical violence, whether it's she slapped me or me push her or she pushed me.
Yeah.
And then there would be distance. There was never closure after those moments.
Now, Chris, a lot of what you're saying is centering around her actions. Can I ask you, was there anything that you did to retaliate during this time? Was there any physical action that you took or anything?
Physical, no. I don't think I could put my hands on my life in that way. But emotionally, have I retaliated? Sure. Rather than continuing to try, at some point you just get exhausted. So
Yeah.
maybe emotionally, at one point earlier on in these past 3 months, I was really pursuing after some kind of reconciliation, and emotionally I've retaliated for sure, because I'm like, well, this is what you want, this is what you want.
Yeah.
And, for the past week or so, we haven't been staying together.
So,
I
Chris,
haven't
if you don't mind me asking, I apologize for cutting you off.
Mhm.
What would be some emotional retaliation that you participated in, if you don't mind me asking?
Say there seemed to be one night where she come in and she wanted to talk.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't often, but maybe 3 or 4 times over the past 2 or 3 months that all this
Right.
is going on. I just showed no interest. I've been nights where I've been sitting at the house waiting on her to get home, or we're both laying in bed and me just wide awake because I really have no idea what's going on with my wife. So many times that I've wanted to talk, so many times that I've wanted to put things out on the table. And then all of a sudden, 2 or 3 weeks goes by and you feel like you have one sudden urge to actually have a conversation. That's my emotional retaliation. I'm like, no,
Yeah.
I'm not going to give you the satisfaction of working this out either, because you've been leaving me with this problem for the past, however long, and not wanting to talk about it.
So you've been shutting down emotionally. Is
Yeah,
that the best way to phrase that?
sure. Yeah, and that's very not like me. But I would definitely say that, especially since I've been entertaining this idea that she's possibly with somebody else. I think that's where that comes from.
Mm-hmm. And so, have you asked her any more about, is she seeing anyone or anything like that? Or since that time where she popped you, have you just kind of, and now you also stated that, um, that she's tried to talk, or that you've been hit more times. And so, and then because you were shut down, do you feel like that's what brought on the violence? Because you didn't want to talk?
I don't know. Maybe, maybe the after occurrences, but the initial time that she physically slapped the crap out of me,
Mm-hmm.
it was a question of, like, where have you been? That was the first time. There was no emotional retaliation on my part before then, because I had held on to that question for so long. I didn't want to ask that question because the answer to it might be more detrimental than just, maybe I just won't ask until I know. But it got to the point where I couldn't hold on to that question anymore. Now, after that, sure, 3 or 4 days after that first argument, or that first that she slapped the out of me, she wasn't home. She did not go. She wasn't out. She'd come home after work. I was cooking when she came home, and so it was very like casual conversation, not sincere. Both of us are clearly in two different places, but two roommates living in the same place. And after about 2 or 3 hours, glass of wine after dinner, the TV's on. She acted like she wanted to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe she felt bad for what happened or whatever, and I didn't want to give her the satisfaction of that it was okay.
Right.
So I said, I don't want to talk about this right now.
Okay.
Um,
Well, Chris, we're getting close to the end of our time here, and so before we end this, and again, this has been a lot for you to process. I've been watching you, and it's clear that this has been difficult for you. And so I want to do a couple of things before we end this session. One of the things is I would like to know: are you interested in talking again?
yeah, it helps because
Okay.
I don't want to talk to any of my friends and taint my wife's image in their mind before I really find out what's going on.
Yeah.
Um, there's not really anybody in my life right now that's going to give me a bird's eye view of what's going on. They're going to take my side, so.
Right. The other thing I want to do is I just want to double check. You feel safe, and you don't feel any inclination or desire to hurt her. Both of you you're good in that regard. Can I ask you another question before we move into a couple of ideas about coping?
Sure.
Um, how long are you planning to stay in the hotel that you're in? How many nights did you pay for?
I got it for a week. I'm on night 4 right now, so I don't know how long I'm going to be here. I guess that's hingent upon how well this goes or if anything else evolves, but it's just kind of a day-by-day thing right now.
Okay. So I don't want to tell you to go home when you don't feel comfortable, but I think that it's wise as soon as you do feel comfortable, even if it's before the 7 days are up, and keep the room. That you try to go home at some point and see her. Does she know that you're there?
Yeah, she knows where I am. We've texted a few times like, hey, did you turn the security alarm on before you left, or are you home? That kind of thing. Like, not just complete in isolation, like not hearing from her or she not hearing from me. So,
Okay, good. What have you been doing personally to cope with this? You mentioned something a minute ago, and I'm only bringing it back up, not as an accusation, but hopefully suggest that it's not something that you're using to cope with this. You mentioned drinking a while ago. That's not how you're attempting to cope with this pain, is it?
no, I'm kind of a bourbon guy. She's kind of a wine lady. So that's a thing that we enjoyed together. We've done distillery tours and we've gone to wineries. And so, although I drink often, I do not drink large quantities or large volumes. And so not to excuse any kind of extra alcohol consumption, but it's not a coping mechanism for me.
Okay.
It's not uncommon for her to have 1 or 2 glasses of wine and me 1 or 2 bourbons before I go to sleep. So.
Okay. So let me ask you this: what are you doing to cope with what's going on?
Well, it's tough. One unhealthy way of coping with it is not talking about it. And so that's, but I've learned that being by myself, I get head spinning and, queasy. And so my buddies that are married, I try to hang out with them as much as I can. I love their kids. They call me uncle. So, I go and hang out at their house. If the wife is gone with the kids somewhere and one of the guys are available to hang out, one of them's got a pool table in his garage. And so we'll just drink and play pool, and it's everything I can do because this is one of my really good friends. But again, I don't want to put my wife there. So they know we're having trouble, but not to this extent. Not that I've been slapped and shoved,
Right. Okay. Are there any suggestions that you would like for coping?
Oh, if you have anything, I would be more than willing to hear it. I don't, by no means, a professional with coping with my own feelings. So.
Right. And I imagine that there's a lot of things that are currently pent up, and I'll give you more specific things later on. But working out is something that's good for releasing pent up aggression and things like that. That's a great coping mechanism. If you're involved in any type of religion or spiritual group, and you mentioned your wife is going to church and a small group there, and potentially finding a group that would allow you to open up about certain things. Obviously, probably not this, but certain things. And then just allowing yourself to not hold all the blame. And that'll take time. That's not something that you're going to do right at the beginning, but begin attempting to not hold on to all the blame that apparently you feel through this. Also, I'd like to say, have you thought about asking her about marriage therapy? So therapy for both of you.
It was something, I don't know anything about marriage counseling. I know people that have gone through it. Haven't really had a lot of serious conversations, but back when it was just the initial what seemed to be frustration from her towards me, I had mentioned that, but ever since it's gotten more violent, I guess I've been more tied up with trying to figure out what's going on than I am consoling the problem or finding a solution. So I would say it hasn't been a serious conversation that we've had together.
Okay. Well, in our future sessions, I'd like for us to talk about that a little bit more. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, Chris, thank you so much for joining me. Hopefully we'll be able to meet again soon and talk a little bit more about stuff. Okay.
Thank you, Clay.
Yes. Thank you, sir.